Hey number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. So today I wanted to share with you an extract from a live stream of mine when we were talking about this whole situation with the pyramids and the alleged discoveries under the pyramids. I've made like a freaking saga out of it. But that night I was talking specifically about the major names when it comes to both the archaeology content creators on YouTube and the alternative archaeology content creators on YouTube, and the sort of war that we've got going on. Well, on that live stream at one point I dedicated a segment to the video created by Milo Rossi, aka Miniminuteman. I practiced the name, and his own video dedicated to the findings under the pyramids. Now, what did I think of the video? Well, of course, he mentions me on the video very positively, and I'm very grateful for that. Always appreciate when people are respectful, and shout-outs are always nice to receive. And when it comes to the video itself, of course, he's a very talented content creator, excellent communicator, science communicator. With this video specifically, I think it looks more like an overview than a deep dive. But then again, even though he said he doesn't want to talk about it again, I don't know if that was just for shock factor or for comedy. Maybe he will make more detailed analyses of the technology involved or the statements made by both Armando May and Corrado Malanga, which I think are central to at least placing our positions when it comes to how much skepticism we should employ when we discuss these alleged discoveries. As I often say, I have nothing against Filippo Biondi, but I strongly resent both May and Malanga in the information they presented and the overall unprofessionalism of how they conducted themselves within those sections of the conference that I translated in Italian. In those sections of that conference that were supposed to give us a justification from an academic standpoint of the interpretations of the images produced by SAR technology. So, is the technology viable? Maybe. Are both premise and subsequent justifications provided by both May and Malanga sufficient and well articulated? Absolutely not. When it comes to the video, a couple of times I've disagreed with what Milo Rossi said. Let's watch it together and let's form our own opinion. Thank you. Let's go into Miniminuteman, shall we? Here we are. Massive content creator, Miniminuteman. 2.5 million subscribers. Let's read his own description, what I always do rather than describing people. I like reading how they describe themselves. Archaeology educator, environmental scientist, author, Google debunker, Humane 2022, I don't know what that means. You guys know what that means? 2.5 million on YouTube and 2 million on TikTok. Man, that's impressive. To have success to that level, not on one platform, but on two platforms, is something that I will always respect, because goodness gracious, it took forever to even hit 1 million. And as a almost 1 million subscriber channel, my views are not as high as I would want them to be. So yes, I reached it, but I wouldn't say that I'm being as effective as I could have been. But when it comes to him, it's clearly a situation where everything works, because 4 days ago, and it's the one about the pyramids, we're going to watch a little bit. And so this one here, he made this one, excellent views. Yeah, his views are great. Let me show you where there is a part where he actually mentions me, and I wanted to share it with you. There he is in the upcoming future.
In Italian. As you can see, I've been fully naturalized as an American, where I can proudly say I only speak one language. And so again, if you want to learn more about this actual study and, fill yourself out on it further, which I highly suggest you do, I really recommend you look at some of the videos from my colleagues. They're excellent. There's another one that I forgot to mention earlier. There's a great video by the YouTuber Metatron, who is a native Italian speaker who went through this whole press conference and is able to boil out a lot more of the juicy information. So I really recommend that you check that out too. There'll also be a link to that in the description. Thank you, Metatron. Fucking great video. Okay, anyway.
Thank you, Milo Rossi. Really appreciate that. Of course, as I was saying before, the fact that someone this big in the space mentions my video is one of the reasons why I think the video exploded the way it did. So I'm very appreciative of that. But one thing that I really liked that he said, note how he introduces, look.
I really recommend you look at some of the videos from my colleagues. They're excellent. There's another one that I forgot to mention earlier. There's a great video by the YouTuber Metatron, who is a native Italian speaker who went through this whole press conference and is able to boil out a lot more of the juicy information.
So I noticed he used the word colleagues, and I believe he mentions colleagues again later on when he puts me on one side and Flint Dibble on the other, and then he says my colleagues. I really appreciate that, because I'm no archaeologist. I'm a history enthusiast. People do use the word historian. For me, they call me a YouTube historian. I never really use the word historian to describe describe myself, but simply because the way I interpret historian is extremely high. So to me, a historian, well, you need to be like one of the major people in the world that are really putting... But I noticed that a lot of people these days use historian in a much looser sense. Then in the loose sense, if you're someone who's really into history and you make money by doing research, if that qualifies you as a historian, then I guess you could call me that. I still don't like using it though, and it kind of makes me feel condescending. Like, oh, look at me, I'm a historian. So I prefer to call myself history enthusiast. I am a teacher. I did it for 10 years, but usually my specialty was languages and culture. Now, given culture and history are intertwined, and I did take a lot of history courses for my university course. I was even allowed to go into the Vatican secret archives because of that. They gave me a special permission because I was putting a lot of work into history, even though I didn't need to. I actually took more exams than I needed for my university degree, simply because I got so interested in it that I just kept doing tests, pretty much. But yeah, so that happened. I appreciate that, and I am very interested to see what he thinks about the pyramids. So, of course, it's a massive video, but I do want to start watching at least a little bit to see what he says. So I will strongly recommend you to go and watch the original video, put links and whatnot.
Hit it, Fergie. Don't even get me started. Okay, guess we gotta waste more breath on this discovery. How's it going, everybody? If you have spent any amount of time on the internet over the course of the past, 3 weeks, you've probably had the misfortune of stumbling across videos like this.
We finally know what's underneath the pyramids. And these
yeah, the TikToks. The TikToks were so idiotic. Perhaps I'm a bit more open-minded than the gentleman on the right of my thumbnail when it comes to... I'm skeptical about it, but who knows? And that's why I presented, rather than going into the sci-fi of it, I went into, which, by the way, if you believe, I respect your opinion, you can believe whatever you want. But as I was saying, I was thinking, maybe what if there are mines? Maybe there is something there. Why don't you dig? So I'm a little open-minded, but my window of open-mindedness towards this has been shrunken because of who Corrado Malanga is and the stuff he presents, and because of the unprofessionalism of Armando May. Both have zero respect from me. Nothing. The only scientist out of the three, and I shouldn't even use that word, but the only scientist for the other two, but the only scientist that I do respect is Filippo Biondi, because I don't see any reason not to at the moment. With that being said, the fact that he works well, I don't want to do guilty by association. I hate guilty by association. So for now, that's why I still have a little window of possibility when I say, you know what? The window is there. It will enlarge if you present more evidence or if you dig. But until then, I'm more inclined to believe that, and definitely when I see the TikToks things, I have no.
discoveries are groundbreaking.
Or like this.
Structures so deep they might form an entire hidden city.
Or even, regrettably...
Sorry, but I have to say this. You see the little lamp? I'll try not to interrupt him too much, but you see the little lamp that this guy has got on his head? The Romans had that. Their mine workers, they had these lamps that were like basically terracotta with a little wickle on it, and they would wear them on their head as they would go inside the mining shafts all the way down to 200 meters under ground zero, and they would walk around with the light from their heads. The Romans had that.
Structures so deep they might form an entire hidden city.
Or even, regrettably, like this.
Yeah. Wow.
About a week ago as I'm filming this right now, I woke up one morning to have my Instagram Reels feed just completely filled with the same conspiracy nonsense over and over again about the exact same thing that I had never heard of in my life. All of them essentially just parroting the exact same thing as one another about this groundbreaking discovery. It changes everything.
Narrative shattering.
That guy, yeah.
It's season 2 Mr. Beast Lab Swarms.
Enhanced by AI.
Oh, Expedition, yeah, the channel.
It's season 2 Mr. Beast Lab Swarms.
That's the channel that I reviewed. They were the ones that hosted the actual, I'm gonna say, infamous conference, because I hate that conference. And you know, it sucks. Because whenever I see the alien stuff, I love it. I love it. I used to watch X-Files like a maniac. I was religiously watching the X-Files back in the day. Fox Mulder, Mulder and Scully. I loved it. And I'm the first, I believe there are aliens out there. I just don't know mathematically. I just don't know if they have visited us or not. But I love the idea. I love it. So like if you're someone who's like, no, I absolutely believe it's the aliens, I'm like, wow, tell me why. Like, I won't make fun of you unless you try to sell stuff. Corrado Malanga. But if it's not the case, if that's not what you're doing, and you're like, you're genuinely passionate about it, I'll love talking to you. I will love it. Doesn't mean I'll believe you, though. Well, that depends on the evidence. But if someone does present some real evidence, or at least something that is like, that makes you think, I enjoy talking about it. So you can call me open-minded when it comes to that. But yeah.
Enhanced by AI.
Spirals.
Beyond is all right up to this point.
That is, of course, the Khafre Pyramid discovery. And this claim spread so far, so fast, that later that week, I was literally asked onto Piers Morgan to talk about it.
Yes or no?
Yeah, okay, look at the roster. So we've got Piers Morgan. Usually, I watch Piers Morgan. Sometimes it's so strange. It's a dice roll for me, this gentleman, because sometimes I like him. Like, there are situations where he challenged some speakers, and I was like, man, Morgan is on fire on this one. So, like, sometimes I like him, but there are other times when he just sticks to a point, and the point is moot. Like, it's not a good point, and he will keep insisting, and then he has the tendency to speak over people. So, for example, I think he handled Destiny very well. I do not like how he handled Alex O'Connor, though. I think he didn't let him speak, if I recall correctly. Alex O'Connor, they never let him speak, and I say that as a Christian. I'm on the other side of Alex O'Connor, but I like the guy. I think he's very intelligent, very articulate. I like listening to his ideas. Fascinating, the fact that he got a degree in theology just so that he could understand, and I respect that. I can't stand it when you have militant atheists that have never opened the Bible and tell me it's nonsense. Well, read it and then tell me you don't believe it and you think it's nonsense. But at least I respect that you put some study into it. I read the entire thing. I read it in Italian, I read it in English, and I read parts of it in Hebrew. With the dictionary, I tried to translate from the Greeks with the help of a professional. I'm very invested in it. And of course, I am biased because I'm Christian, so I always look at it in a way that I have to be careful and against my own selective bias in the matter. I'm aware of that, and I try to push them back at least when we talk about the linguistics of it or the historical context. With that being said, Alex O'Connor I can respect because he studies it, he read it, he talks about it from a position of knowledge, and that I can respect, even if I ultimately disagree with many of his takes. And I remember Piers Brosnan, I just wouldn't let him, Piers Morgan, not Brosnan. But with Piers Morgan, it's, as I say, kind of depends. And when he had Richard Dawkins on, he kept insisting on this point, and I'm like, Piers, the point is not good. Can we move on? So it depends on the situation, but there are situations in which I think he handles people really well.
UFOs have visited Earth, and governments are keeping it secret.
Sounds cool, man. No idea.
That's how you know the situation has gotten...
I like that he said no idea, though. Did you notice that? I like that he said no idea. And that's my position. I have no idea if aliens visited our planet like 50,000 years ago. I don't know.
Completely out of control. Now, I made a short about this a little while ago. I talked about it on, Piers Morgan, but I wanted to make a bit more of a definitive piece so that I can say all of this once, hopefully never have to say any of it ever again.
Video's pretty good so far, though.
Okay, so first and foremost, there's already a whole bunch of videos about this discovery that my colleagues have done that are way more eloquent than I am. They break down a lot more of the study and the technology behind it, and really get into sort of the technical nitty-gritty side of things. Now, in this video, I'm going to give a bit of a TLDR on this whole situation, and really the thing we're going to be diving into is just the absolutely insane spread of the bullshit surrounding this story. So
yeah, and that connects with TikTok particularly, but even YouTube, to be honest.
Really recommend after this video going to check out Ancient Architect's video on this research. He does a really great job of breaking it down in a level of technicality that I think is really important for everyone. And there's also a great video by Flint Dibble that talks to a researcher that's familiar with this type of satellite data that they used here.
I haven't watched Flint Dibble's video on it. it. I'll have to check it.
That I think everyone should familiarize themselves with as well. So links to those videos will be in the description. I'm gonna do my thing now. So I've been sort of hoarding like crazy person Instagram reels for the last week. And so largely what I want to do in this video is go through just how crazy it is that misinformation can spread so fast and so far. And we're all gonna lose some brain cells together watching some videos that I haven't even really had the guts to watch all the way through until now. Because I'm only gonna do it once, and so it might as well be on camera. But before that, let's give a little synopsis of what the whole situation is here for anyone who's not aware. So the claim goes like this. In a press conference earlier this month,
there they are, guys. There they are.
A couple of researchers claimed that they found evidence of 8 2-kilometer-long cylindrical structures underneath Khafre's pyramid. Khafre's pyramid is the middle of the Great Pyramids. You might know it as being the second one from the left or the second one from the right. This is the image that most of us are probably familiar with about this discovery. I don't think I have ever used the word discovery more liberally in my life. We see the columns stretching down into the ground with some spiraling things around them and then 2 massive chambers at the bottom. Now that image looks pretty convincing, right? I mean, you wouldn't just pull a technical looking image like that out of your ass to mislead people, right? Right? Now, while the conspiracy accounts will proudly show you this image, what many of them will conveniently leave out is this image, which is the image of the actual data that they got. Okay. Whew, it's cold in here. 40 degrees.
And do remember that the one doing the interpretation, aka Corrado Malanga, is colorblind. I will never stop saying that.
Here I was thinking spring was coming. You guys saw my April Fool's video. Sorry, I left my vat of Vaseline here. My bad.
This is us. Just whiteboard. An F55-gallon of Vaseline.
Jeez, I'm stingy. I know.
He's very fun, though. That's why I can see why he's very popular, because he's fun and prepared. Milo Rossi, that is.
You leave 2 dudes alone on a nice day with a vat of Vaseline, you know? You better have Kleenex. I was outside. Sun was shining. Birds were tweeting. I was covered in Vaseline. Gotta love it. Okay, what was I talking about?
So
so this is the data that they actually got from this. And then they interpreted this data into this, which I don't think is
I don't know if that's the exact screenshot because I think they have multiple, and I remember that there was one where you do see these like vertical columns. So I believe that's not the exact screenshot that they used, but still, because they includes Corrado Malanga, I'm like, you know what, dig, because I'm not gonna believe Corrado Malanga. I just don't believe Corrado Malanga. It is what it is.
Honest, and I could even say really fucking misleading. So the way that this data was acquired, this data, not the, you know, fan art that they made of it, was through
synthetic aperture radar,
or SAR. SAR technology is sort of similar to an ultrasound,
right?
The thing they baby with. And you might be thinking, well, if I was looking for a chamber 2 kilometers...
Holy moly, I never saw that. Like, when you look at it this way, is this an accurate... I think it is, because he puts the meters at the top. Man, when you see it this way, is insane. That's in New York, isn't it? Look at that. Holy moly. Oh, that's Dubai. Apologies. I have no idea.
Kilometers underneath the Pyramid of Giza, the height of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the planet.
Okay.
I'd probably use something other than an ultrasound. And you'd be right, considering this SAR technology does an absolutely dogshit job of actually penetrating into the Earth. But to their credit, the researchers don't actually claim that this is ground penetrating radar going into the ground. Rather, they use the SAR data alongside Doppler tomography data, and they claimed that by looking at both of these pieces of information combined, they were not looking into the Earth, but they were analyzing micro movements in the Earth, which they could then interpret to see shapes underground. You know, now again, you can check out Flint's video to learn more about this, because he talks to someone who specializes in this stuff. I am not a ground-penetrating radar or sonar expert. So all of this data, which I might also add, was acquired from a satellite...
2 satellites, to be specific.
680 kilometers above the Earth, produced this piece of data, which was then interpreted as this. I think we should do more ultrasounds from high Earth orbit. I feel like that could be a niche that could be quite profitable. So anyway, this data was then not published. It was discussed in 2 different...
On the profitable aspect, do keep in mind, and again, I guess it's not a regular procedure, but at the end of the conference, of the 4-hour conference, everybody was instructed to go to whatever table to buy Corrado Malanga's books. So there is that.
Different press conferences, one of which was hosted by a former member of, what was it called again? InfoWars. Ah, wow. Actually very proud to have forgotten the word InfoWars. I could go my whole life never seeing that again and I'd be fucking thrilled. Wow, Milo from the future. I wanted to just pop in real quick to warn you guys, I will put on a different hat later in this video. I know, and I'm really sorry. I just had to give you advance warning. I'm kidding. I'm here because when I exported this last batch of footage, I noticed something was wrong with the autofocus, and so it decided that my computer was the thing that needed to be in focus. The issue that I found was that my camera was not set to.
Yeah, sometimes I have the issue of focus, but no one is as good as Motahar from Some Ordinary Gamers when it comes to messing up the focus of the camera. He's the king, unsurpassable.
To face autofocus, it was set to pet autofocus, which still doesn't really explain why it focused on my computer. But fucking who knows? I fixed it now. Milo, can you go back in and just reshoot all of that? No, absolutely not. Myself and
that's what I do because I'm a masochist. If I don't like it, I'll reshoot the entire thing.
The rest of the world have already wasted enough of our collective breath on this stupid fucking theory, and so I'd rather dedicate my time to making videos about like actual archaeology and things that there's at least some evidence for. Like the Octagon Earthworks video.
That's fair.
It's going to be the next one that comes out.
I mean, I've been making a lot of videos on the pyramids, and I'm not gonna stop. I just love it. I love the speculation, I love the discussion. I love to hate on Armando May and Corrado Biondi's ideas.
Hopefully. It's about a site with actual...
But then again, I do enjoy the possibility. I love the possibility. I really hope there is something under there, by the way. I really do.
Sacred geometry and astronomical alignments, and not this stupid sensational bullshit. So, look, here's a cool clip of it.
Alignments to all 8 of those are built into this architecture. It goes on a perfectly straight path, almost like a microcosm of the ancient indigenous North American cosmos.
Wow. Wasn't that pretty cool? Hooks in you. Come back in 2 weeks. Okay, anyway, I'll let you get back to Milo with the other hat now. Anyway, so one of the people at this press conference was apparently a guy
not too
formerly
bad.
from InfoWars. That's the level of credibility we're dealing with here. Then I think it was picked up by actual InfoWars, at which point it was picked up...
I never watched it. I don't know anything about InfoWars, so I can't judge.
...by the Joe Rogan Experience, which...
I enjoy watching Joe Rogan. I do watch Joe Rogan. Doesn't mean I always agree with his guests, but I enjoy the show.
...to chew it up and mama bird regurgitate it into the mouths of every insufferable dude bro with a microphone. And that is how this thing that I can't even stress enough how little information we actually have on it has turned into probably the most discussed archaeological topic of the year so far. Now, I think it's also important I mention a little bit about the researchers who are providing us with this. One of them, Armando May, is a self-taught Egyptologist, which is, as we've discussed in previous episodes, a guy who likes Egypt. Now, apparently self-taught in this case just means read a lot of books about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, he's fixated with the Emerald Tablets. And yeah, I have to agree with him on this. Armando May was, I don't know if he was the worst. Was he the worst? Or was Corrado Malanga the worst? Maybe Armando May, because I love this. I gotta tell you this. So there is this section, right, where Armando May, he's going on the dating of the complex of Giza. And he says, well, you know, this is normally dated 10,400 years in the past, but no, my opinion is that he doesn't even say opinion. He says it should be dated 36,600 years in the past. And I'm like, oh, wow, this guy is adding 25,000, 26,000 years to the dating. Not 1,000, not 5,000. 25,000 years. So I'm intrigued. I'm like, all right, well, let me see, how is he going to justify that? And the way he justified it is, oh, well, because you know, when you date a complex, a site like this, you shouldn't just date the pyramids and the Sphinx, but you should also date the shafts and the temples. Full stop. That's how he justified 26,000. I'm like, what are you dating? The sand? It was so unprofessional, not to mention the numerology part. I loved it. That was my favorite. When it's like, well, wait, in this temple here, there are 16 columns. 16 means, and then I figured out after, 16 means 7. Why? Because in numerology, when you have two numbers, then you have to sum them. So 6 plus 1 is 7, and that's the number he extrapolated. Then he connected it to this one single niche that he decided was important. So we have number 7, number 1, and then there is number 3 because it's the number of corridors. Yet he gets 374, then he flips it around and says that that's the number that the ancient, whoever the heck was, 36,000 years in the past decided to build it that way so that you could figure out, you meaning Armando May specifically, could figure out 30,000 years in the future that that number was important because it was connected to a Menti to tell him, hey, there is something underneath, you should use your SAR technology to check it. This is insane. Insane. And people tell me you call them unprofessional just because you don't believe in it. No, I call them unprofessional because this is rubbish. This is rubbish. Can you imagine, like for a second, all right, whether it be an alien, okay, I need to put myself full screen. Whether it be an alien, or whether it be an incredible ancient Egyptian architect, in both cases, I think we can firmly say we're talking about a professional that knows what they're doing. If it's an alien, well, he made all the way from freaking Orion all the way here. I think they know a thing or two about building structures and technology. And if it is a professional architect, I think they know what they're doing. So his workers are building the number of columns, and they're like, sir, we are ready to build the 20 columns. And the architect / alien says, no, you can't do 20 columns. It needs to be 16. And they're like, but sir, the columns are used to support the structure. Everything is going to collapse if we don't put 20. And he's like, no, I don't care. You need to put 16 because in the future, 30,000 years in the future, there will be one man named Armando May who needs to count 6 + 1. And then his workers are like, well, why don't you freaking write it with the hieroglyphs? No, because it needs to be hidden. He needs to figure it out. And then he needs to do all the rest of the connection. Can you imagine that? This is what this guy is thinking. Armando May.
About ancient Egypt. In the March 16th press conference, he speculated that this information could imply that the pyramids and the structures around them are 36,000 years old, and is one of the people who's a big proponent of all the astronomical alignment things as well. So take that for what you will. Now, the team leader is even more reputable, as he is actually a published author. Corrado Malagana, the team leader...
Malanga. I can send you recordings, Milo, if you want. Don't even need to mention me, don't worry about it. Just tell me, hey, there are these 3 names, they're Italians, how do I pronounce them? I'll do it for you. Corrado Malanga.
...has published books like this one. And like this one.
Okay, let me have a look.
...has published books like this one.
Corrado Malanga, Genesi, Uomo, Universo e Mito. Yeah, it sounds like a book when he tells you that the aliens are trying to steal your soul. That's what he says. Because the aliens don't have a soul. They have a spirit, they have a mind, but they don't have a soul. And humans, only some humans, have 3 parts, including the soul. And the aliens want the soul because they can use it, they can suck it out from your body and install it in the body of an alien who's about to die to prolong his life. That's Corrado Malanga.
And like this one.
Corrado Malanga, UFO nella mente. Oh, the UFO in the mind. So if just by this title, if you are into the ufology community, you shouldn't like this because he's saying it's in the mind. No, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think it's because he's talking about the sessions that they did, the hypnosis, where he says that there is a giant crocodile 2 meters and 40 centimeters tall that people say kidnaps them, abducts them, because he says it's not a kidnap, it's an abduction. And I think that's what he's talking about. But yeah, he's right. That's Corrado Malanga for you. Besides, why do the aliens keep abducting drunk drivers, lorry drivers? Do they have a soul? And if they did, could they not just abduct one and then clone him? So then they can just farm those souls without having to every single time risking people recording them with their phones? I mean, it's just a suggestion to the aliens. Guys, if you need any more tips and tricks when it comes to strategy, I'm talking to the aliens right now, $100 an hour.
Now, I'm not saying that these things are enough to write this theory off on principle, but they're not doing it any favors. This is one of the really big problems I have with this entire thing. I am all for researching this more. I said that on Piers Morgan, I will say it now. I think that seeing an anomaly under the pyramid is something that should be looked into. We should look more into refining this SAR technology that they were using. But I think it is so wildly manipulative to turn this data into this image, which you don't even bother to get published, and went straight to literally the most mainstream mass media outlet on the planet. Joe Rogan fans talking about the mainstream media and then saying in the next breath, it's the most listened to podcast in the world. Fuck it, never.
To be serious, to be fair about this, I think when people say mainstream media, they don't talk about the size or the reach of the media. They mean that it's the media behind specific corporations situation possibly under governmental control. So the simple fact that Joe Rogan is massive, because he is, I think the fans of Joe Rogan Experience will still say, yes, but it's independent because it's Joe Rogan. And so there isn't the intervention. I think that's how they would respond to that. So a little bit of a weak line of attack in this case. But that's how I would see it. And again, I watch Joe Rogan because I think people should be allowed to speak even if I disagree with them when it comes to his hosts, or his guests. And I do believe that the mainstream media oftentimes has such a political bias that it's impossible to trust them. And that's why, by the way, I think people are redirected to independent creators like you and me, Milo Rossi, and then, you know, and then I think lots of creators can be there and tell you what they think, and then every person can say, hey, I agree with that one, not with the other one.
Never mind. Now, the claims for what this is have ranged everything from them being support structures to them being a giant power generation system. There's about a million things wrong with these actually being man-made structures. One, this is so wildly below the water table. I don't know how they would have done this. Two,
there are ways to divert a water stream, and the Romans mention it. So the water table, to me, it's not like a gotcha phrase necessarily, but it is a problem. So I agree that it does reduce the likeness of this being true, that there are artificial structures. But there are ways to work with that. Like the Romans specifically say, if you reach an underground river stream or a water table, this is what you do. And then they use the screw that was called the Egyptian screw, because the Romans learned it from the Greeks, who learned it from the Egyptians, that was specifically used to create a mechanical device that could get rid of the excess water and maintain the shaft dry and the galleries. But still, I'm with him. Okay, I am with him when it comes to being skeptical about this, particularly because of who Armando May and Corrado Malanga are and how they conducted the conference. So I am with him.
This is a structure that is built on top of limestone bedrock. So how did they do this? And why would they have done it for support structure?
I don't know what that is, but it kind of reminds me of Age of Empires 2. I don't know why. Does that work with you as well? I can already imagine clicking on it and creating a person and then
if it's already built on bedrock. Then the kind of other obvious one is we have no other context that would make this make any sense. Like if we were finding all kinds of structures underneath the other pyramids and we found evidence of like smaller ones, or this resembled a structure that was built in other places in Egypt, maybe I'd be like, yeah, okay, so we have a little bit of context that this is worth looking into. But I'm like, we literally don't see this anywhere. This is just completely contextualist. And really just the fact that this sonar image was turned into this is absolutely laughable. This would be like me walking...
Yeah, I mean, the way Corrado Malanga explains, he said that they did it because they used AI models. He doesn't tell us the software. He doesn't tell us... By the screenshots, I think it's either ChatGPT or Claude AI. It's possible that it's Claude AI, since Claude AI is developed by Italians, but if not, it's probably ChatGPT. And then he uses the language model for something that isn't language related, which is already nonsensical. And then he says, well, the AI never gets anything wrong, so he actually said that in Italian. So yes, it is laughable the way they did it. Doesn't mean that this is completely wrong. Maybe there is something that isn't this, but maybe there is something underneath. As I say, I'm always open to that. They used AI and said, Corrado Malanga said, AI never gets anything wrong.
Walking into your living room with like a thermal camera or something and noticing sort of like a warm spot on your wall and being like, elves. You got a family of elves nesting in your walls. Like, yeah, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but not really, because this is like Schrodinger's pyramid. No one, and I cannot stress this enough, no one has any fucking idea what this actually is. This is not peer-reviewed.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's not peer-reviewed. The previous study from 2022 apparently was peer-reviewed. But the current one that is in connection with the conference is correct. They still haven't released it. I think it would have given them more credibility, although then again, credibility is a word I cannot associate with Corrado Malanga and Armando May, but I could with Filippo Biondi. But I think they would have had more credibility if they had first published the paper on the newest one. But we'll see. They'll publish it, I guess. Go on.
I said this a lot in the short I made on this. Not only is this not peer-reviewed, it's like not even really published. And while that shouldn't be enough to just completely write off an idea, it's certainly reason to not just accept it at face value like pretty much every conspiracy theorist is currently doing. Okay, now I want to be a little bit charitable actually towards this research and the researchers doing it.
Good.
While I'm certainly a little bit skeptical of their motives and some of the underlying biases may have, I don't think this is a bad study by any sense of the word. Now, I'm going to lay aside for a second the actual research of what's underneath the pyramid and look more at the technology that they were using, because that's the part that I think is the most interesting to me. I encourage these researchers to continue this study, try and get it published, and try and get it peer-reviewed, because I think there's potentially some really interesting discoveries to be made with refining the SAR technology that they used. If we could reliably use high Earth orbit satellites to analyze, micro movements in the Earth to predictably detect cavities underground, that could be a pretty groundbreaking technology. What I would suggest to the researchers, if I was part of a hypothetical peer review team researching their paper, is first, I would like to see evidence of how this SAR technology actually works. The way that they would do this is by going to an area that has well-documented underground cavities and cave systems and using this technology there and seeing if they can align the data they got from the satellite with the known data of what we have. Again,
he's absolutely right. Now, they did test the technology on 3 separate sites, as I have discussed. The problem, however, is they didn't really go underground, in the sense that there is a ground zero and the pyramids go 648 meters and then 1.2 kilometers. They claim even down to 2,000 meters or 2 kilometers underneath the Earth's crust, which also means, I don't know if I misspoke there, I'm not a geologist, but ground zero. And of course there is the water table, which we don't know whether it can influence with the SAR technology or not. However, the 3 sites where they tested it were a tunnel, dam that is in Turkey. The tunnel is in Italy, the dam is in Turkey. But once again, the dam I actually looked at it, and the dam is above the ground. In fact, there is a little mound of clay, and then they build the thing. Maybe the turbines were a little bit underneath the water, but I'm not sure about it, because unfortunately, I wish they did that. I shouldn't do that. If you're presenting it as data to show that your tech works, you need to provide all of this information. They didn't. And then the only one that was maybe remarkable was the one about the underground laboratories in the Del Sasso, the mountain in Italy, which is a mountain that it's found in the middle of Italy, basically. So there's this highway, which is the A24, that goes from left to right in the boot of Italy, and then there is this mountain, and they dug tunnels inside it, and then in one of these tunnels, as you turn right, I believe, they put a lab. Of course, that lab is under 1,400 meters of rock if you count from the peak of the mountain, but it's not below ground zero. There is no water table involved. The rock is slightly different. They do have lime rock in both, but there is also granite, which I don't know if it's going to influence the data, make it easier, harder, no idea. They don't explain. And then the problem is that they did tell us on that conference that when the satellite makes the discoveries and the scans, it's slanted. It's not perfectly on top, perpendicularly. So if it's slanted, what does it matter that the top of the mountain is here, 1,400 meters, and then there is the lab? If you take it from the sides, then what's the depth? How much rock is it going through? The data appeared to work, but as I say, it's a different context. So I would have loved it if they did it on the Labyrinth of Paris, which do go at least 200 meters underground. Imagine if we could map all of that, because there is water involved in there. And then if there are mines in South Africa, in America, in South America, that go 3,000 and 4,000 meters underneath the ground. Scan it on those and see if you can accurately detect all the way down to 2,000 meters. Then we can start talking. Particularly if there is a water table involved, I think that would be really good.
Science always works from the known into the unknown. So right now what we know about this is so very little that the far unknown is just complete speculation. Another piece of this puzzle that I sort of came across while doing this is that I think there's actual documented cavities underneath the pyramid, not man-made structures, but it's just limestone, so of course there's cavities. And those didn't show up on this technology. I have no citation for this. This is just something I stumbled across.
Unless some of the things that do show up are in fact, because they claim they're man-made, maybe they're not artificial. But yeah, we would have to double check this information. It's something I'll look into it. Because I can't verify it or anything. Of course, limestone does have the tendency of having ducts pretty much, like tunnels inside that form naturally. It would be interesting to see if, in fact, these tunnels that we know have been already mapped under the pyramids, if they didn't show up with this art technology, then they should explain to us why. But we should just put a pin on that because it hasn't been confirmed.
I didn't fact check this really heavily, but this is part of the reason why I think that this technology should be refined a lot further, and that should be the direction that these researchers take it before bringing it to claim that they've made the most groundbreaking discovery in all of archaeology. I just think they're putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Now, I am almost kind of shocked to say this, but this is also almost the unanimous agreement within like the leading figures in the alt history space as well. Even the two alt history guys that joined me on Piers Morgan were in full agreement with me and Flint about this being something that is just way too early to say and needs more research. The people who tell
Hey, well, will you look at that? For once, they're not at each other's throat. That was pretty cool. Anyway, so far, it's a really good video. I like the video. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump to the next speaker. But once again, Milo Rossi, thank you very much for mentioning my channel. I really appreciate that. More than happy to maybe join forces and work together. All right, number ones, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow for my next daily upload. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.